hold on. Now, unfortunately, for some reason, my microphone decided it didn't want to play ball and it just wanted to give up. So it stopped after about 3 seconds, which was while I was outside the barn opening up the door. Anyway, never mind. So I'm going to have to do this manually. This is episode 32. Welcome to episode 32. Right, so this really is 4 days. All right, because I sneaked up there on the Wednesday to get some work done, and mainly prep work on this damn door. And I was up there Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. A fair amount got done, but it's all very slow now because I'm trying to put stuff back carefully. It's easy to sling things back up in the gap, but anyway, it's a bit of a slow process. So, rather than the usual intro, I'll have a quick run through the things I know I got done this time. I fitted the door, sort of. Roy Gould and his partner Lisa popped up to put some transfers on RM1069 on Monday. The roof panels arrived for the RT because the interior I plan to do as a little winter job. And as usual, I did some painting, which I didn't bother to film because it's as boring as watching grass grow. But anyway, here we are. So enjoy episode 32. Okay, I admit I cheated a bit here. This is actually Wednesday the 21st of August. So I popped up to the barn with the intention of test fitting this door back into the frame. So the first thing I needed to do was get all this masking paper off. It's not good practice to leave it on there too long, because what tends to happen is it then starts to adheres much better to the paint and off it comes. And also this sort of little rubber stripping there, you start ending up with this gooey sort of gunky material stuck on it. So it is useful to get it off quite quick. This side I resprayed about 2 weeks ago. I wasn't very happy with the final finish. There was some blotches on it, so I decided to flat it down again and give it a quick respray. So that was that side. Then we just flipped this over. The brown got resprayed again because that too had a couple of minor issues I wasn't too happy with. Now that little panel there with which sits just above the black rubbery section, that is the original panel. I couldn't change that. Came with the door. It's got a little ridge in it and very little cutout with a ridge for the handle that lowers the lowers the window. That was a door. Anyway, so yeah, so that I had to sort of reuse, unfortunately. There we are. So that is the driver's side of the door. Now you may remember that I did mention about, thanks, yeah, well, thumbs up, yeah, you got all the paper off, well done. Anyway, I did mention about that sequencing of putting things back together again, didn't I? I put this back together, I put all these door handles back on. I was being a bit fussy actually because I bought brand new brass screws for this. And when I put them in, I thought, oh, they don't look good actually, because there's a nice brass screw and an aluminium handle. It just looks a bit weird. So I used the old original screws. I cleaned them up. I got a piece of wet and dry paper and cleaned them up, and they actually came up quite nice. So yeah, reusable. Stick them back on again. So anyway, fiddling around. Look, see how I'm trying to get this dead line. Look, so the groove in the screw is dead in line, so it goes up parallel or whatever, or vertical, whichever way you want to look at it, with the panel. It's something I'm not entirely sure if they really did that in when they built these things. I think they probably just let the screw rest where it was, but in preservation we like to get these things right. Anyway, yeah, back to the original plot, what I was saying. I put all this door back together again, and then discovered I had to take bits of it apart in order to get it back into the bus. So I was a bit annoyed about that, but yeah, hey ho, that's what happens. It's that should note really the sequence that I took things apart, and to get the rail back in, there's a little rail that sits on the door. I had to take the top of the part of the door off that holds it in place, which is a bit of a shame, but hey ho. Anyway, when I did get it back in, I then discovered the holes that my brother and I had made, or the bit of wood we'd made, it didn't quite line up properly. So this weekend's work is to get this straight. Anyway, so there's the door, give it a little clean up, and go and park it up around the back of the shed. So right, finally, here's the driver's cab door. All done, sitting on top of the bench at the moment, waiting to go back inside the bus. Painted green on this side and a brown on this side. So yeah, I was fairly pleased with that when I started putting it back together again about 2 months ago. I just hope that I can get it lined up properly in the cab. So that's our next task. Right, so Saturday, the door dominated most of the bank holiday weekend, as I think you probably would have expected. It was quite heavy, and I didn't fancy moving it about too much. But anyway, I managed to do it on my own over this bank holiday. I managed to get it fitted, but other exciting things happened. The ceiling panels for the RT, interior RT arrived. My friend I call Billericay Dave, he's doing an RTL not too far away from where I am, and we agreed to go half-half on getting the timber and everything, so I think we might have got a small discount there. So anyway, these are the roof panels for the RT, although they are hidden by his template panels which are across the top. Now, once I've completed the cab, I know the cab's dragged on for a bit. I think we started ripping it out in August and we are where we are today. Once I've done that, I'm going to try and move around to where the engine compartment is, because there's a few sort of sticky issues there. And then I'm going to move to the interior. The interior is a winter job. So these panels are set aside for the winter. I might take the opportunity during perhaps October, November to pop some paint on these so they are painted before they go in, but it's definitely going to be a winter job. Right, so let's get on with it, shall we? Right, it's Sunday morning, day 2 of a 3-day bank holiday weekend. Today's task is to try and get this cab door back in. You will recall that I did quite a bit of work on it a few episodes back, but now it's the turn of the cab door to go back in the bus. I did a test fit a couple of days ago when I managed to sneak up here during the week, and I do need to make some adjustments. Not serious adjustments, but I do need to make some adjustments. This bit of wood just sits up top here. When I took it out years and years ago, about 25, 30 years ago, it fell out like a load of matchwood. So I managed to get a friend of mine who loaned me a one from one of the buses he'd done, and was quite a good copy, but they're never actually perfect. That's the problem with RTs. They're craftsman vehicles, so each one is pretty much different. But anyway, and once I get the cab door in, it's quite critical because I can't put things like this. This is the post that sits in there, goes that way. So this post needs to go in. Once this post is in, I can then put this cab window in, and then the front cab window, this lower one here, can go in because there's a little bracket that sits on the outside of this panel here. Once that's in, then I can then put the compass panel back on that goes around the front, and it will then start to look like I'm making some progress. Yesterday while I was here, although I didn't film it, I took the turret back out again. Now, these are the 3 wires that I had some issues with the other day. I've tested all of these. These are all perfectly fine. But when I connected them up to the little turny-whirny thing that sits up here, it didn't work. It was a bit annoying, really. So what it turns out was it's not the wiring that's defective. After sitting around for 30-odd years, the little turn indicator thing has failed. So I'm going to have to try and take the thing apart, which is a bit sad because I painted it all up really nicely. I'm going to have to now dismantle it and clean the contacts. I only think it's the contacts. I had a look at one I've got one that's really not, was a bit defective really. So I took that apart, had a look inside it to see how they're made. And they're quite simple. So it's just, I think, a case of just cleaning up those contacts. So once those contacts are clean, it's repainted, I'll put it back in the cab. So that's a job now that's on the back burner. I've also got a little job which I need to do just on the cab floor. I'll be honest with you, I've been putting this off for a few days because I really don't fancy it. I've got to be almost hanging upside down in here, trying to get the cab floor rubbers back in. That's not going to be a pleasant job.
I saw a friend of mine popped up yesterday. He brought in the ceiling panels that I'm going to use for the interior of this, and he said it's a horrible job. But anyway, it has to be done. It's joys of owning an RT. So if you want an RT, you've got to expect that you're going to get some jobs you don't really want to have to do. But it is what it is. But once it gets finished, I suppose I can sit back and go, oh, that looks good. So, but that's probably a long way off at the moment.
Right, so although I do need to get on with that cab floor, and boy oh boy do I keep putting it off, I also need to get this thing sorted. This is the wooden part that sits just above the door frame, and I needed to get it a little bit more accurate because unfortunately the runner wouldn't fit back in place, which is a bit of a shame really. But so anyway, my multi-tool, I like this. I didn't aware that these things existed, but they're pretty good. Unfortunately, the wood is hardwood, so it doesn't like being sawn. It really is a bit of a problem, and I've lost a couple of screws in there as well. So I'm screwing them in, and they've just snapped and sheared off, despite being stainless. But anyway, here I am trying to get this rail to fit. When you're on your own, you end up having to resort to these things, these little clamps. They're Darrell's, my brother gave me them, which is quite useful. I've got some heavier metal G clamps, which can be a little bit destructive at times. They sort of knock all the paint off stuff. So anyway, so I've done this, put these things on, and just to see whether this actually lines up. And it was going to pose a bit of a problem during the course of the day because it's a really tight fit at the cab window end. If you look just towards the top left hand side of the screen, that is right up against the framework. So anyway, here it is. As many of those things I can put in to hold it in as best as possible. The little bits of masking tape that you see there are sort of indicators to me as to where things should be positioned. But I needed to get this as tight against the side of the bus as possible, so hence the rather large hammer, and give the thing a bit of a bash. But yeah, done all that nice paint and then smacking it about with a big hammer. And later on I was going to damage a bit more paint as well, which is a bit of a shame. So there we are, there's the rail going back in. Right, so having got that rail in, it's now time to hang the door off of that framework. I had to dismantle the top of the door, which was a little bit irritating because I got it all nicely painted up, but apparently that part has to go in the bus first and then the door gets hung on it. So I got that round the wrong way, but anyway, hey ho. The other thing I did at this stage was, you can see the little slidey thing there. The other thing I did at this stage was to manage to get it in, and then they got it around the wrong way, Dean. Turn it around the other way. Should be green side out, not brown side out. There you go. It'd be interesting putting the door around the wrong way, wouldn't it? Eh? Wonder who'd noticed that. So there we go. Right, so what I needed to do was to lift it up and then get it to sit in that groove. You'll see the groove in a second. But it is a rather heavy little beast, and I had planned to ask someone to give me a hand sort of carrying it up into the cab, but you can just about do it on your own. As you can see, there you go, you can get it in, but it's probably better with two people. But a lot of the stuff I'm doing up there at the moment I'm doing on my own. Yeah, at least we got the NHS in the UK, I suppose. Right, anyway, so sliding that in and getting it ready for that. As you can see, I'm not entirely sure that it's right. To get it in, what you should really do is put something underneath the bottom of it and just hold it up slightly. And that was a mistake I made because I slid it about all over my paint and then put scratches all over it. So I've spoilt it. But anyway, there's only so much fun that you can have with this door, isn't there? So let's pop it back down again. Anyway, I'll leave you to watch this. Shall I watch? No, should we do it? I don't know. Stick together with this for a minute. So anyway, the other thing is, you notice how nice and shiny that door is. I was really quite pleased how that came up. But you will notice in another shot where I do a close-up of the door, just above that bit of beading there, that's the lower part of the door, I'd use a mastic which included silicone, and it made the paint go funny. And I've rubbed it down a few times, tried to lose it, and I can't. Be very aware if you end up using silicone, because silicone and paint really don't go together. They're really bad things. At this point, I'm worried. Will that door just fall out on the floor? I didn't want to go anywhere. I had no clamps to hold the thing in place, but I didn't want to risk it just simply falling out or falling into the cab and smashing a window or something. I just didn't want that happening. But the other thing I've now lost is the ability, as you can see, to grab hold of anything to climb in the cab. Yeah, I know, it was a bit of a silly thing, but there you go. So I got in eventually, as you'll probably see with this. But it has been fun doing this door, and it'll be even more fun when the whole thing's blooming finished. But there we are. So that's getting the door in. I think we can probably cut here because I think you get the general idea of this, don't you?
Well, the door is in. There's a few signs that it's not in exactly the right place. Apparently these things adjust the height of the door. So once I've got all of this tightened up, then I may well need to have a look at that. But that's job for a little bit later on. There's a couple of other minor things that don't seem entirely right at the moment. But bearing in mind, we had very little to go on with this. I need to move this door now. That means clambering in the cab without pulling the door off its hinges. Hang on. Ooh. I bet this makes great viewing, doesn't it? Eh? Right, okay. The wobbly bit, by the way, is because I put the camera on the steering wheel. Yeah, so fingers and toes crossed. That was quite tight. So yeah, fingers and toes crossed, all will be well. I need to touch in some of these bits up the top here where I've been chiseling away the wood. It is hardwood, which means it's quite resistant to change. It's quite hard to work with, as you may have saw earlier on. But anyway, it appears to be, as I say, pretty much there. It's just got to tighten everything up, and then we see how it goes. I mean, you know, you might say, well, it's a simple thing, a bloody door, but there's a lot of work involved in getting it straight and getting it to run properly. There, look, see? That latches in. That should sit in a little slot at the back there. Just there, I've got to put the slot back. And, yeah, that latches in at that end. And it's on the stops, although you can't see that, but it's on the stops. When it comes this way, there you go, it should be in that groove. Yeah, groovy, as they say. Oh, groovy. I'll do another little tighten on this and see how we get on. Yeah, that's fine. That's not going to go much more. So the next thing to do is to adjust the door to make sure it runs true. But yeah, that's on the stops at each end. Oh, I'm pleased with that. And I put the damn thing in on my own as well. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that. So paintbrush out later on. I caught this, unfortunately, when I was doing the chiselling. So that needs to be touched up again. This is part of the problem. You make things look really nice, and then you have to come along later on and bash them with a big hammer or do something. And you can see just there, I've took the paint off this little corner. So all I need to do now is do the pillar that goes there, and then I can do these two frames, and it's starting to look like a bus again. Right, okay, so just a quick run through this door. Now we've got the thing in place. It should sit, and it does, on this little bump stop here. There's a bump stop there. There's about, I don't know, 3 or 4 millimeters between the bump stop and that. So that's, there, look, see a little bit of movement there. Maybe I can move that forward a bit. This is actually a household door stop just there. I don't know if you can see that, but that's a little household door stop. Down here now, let's have a look. You can see that it drops down. So it drops down towards this end, and it's slightly higher towards that end. Now, if I do it quicker, you can actually see that, look. So therefore, this part of the door needs to come up, and I don't know how we're going to achieve that. It's quite resistant to change at the moment. So yeah, that part of the door needs to come up. Okay, a job for later on, possibly. Right, anyway, and then what we do here is we close the door, and it should, that's perfect, pretty much so. That will then sit in a little gully, which runs just down there. So I need to pop the gully back on, and that should sit in there. What I had earlier on, this is actually his Rootmaster rubber. Apparently it's the same rubber. So yeah, but it was a little bit on the chunky side, so it didn't sit in the gully. So I popped the gully on the other day, and with the idea of lining the door up against it. However, it wouldn't fit in the gully. So I thought, right, I'll take the gully back off, knowing this rubber's a little bit chunky. And then later on, once I've got the door lined up, I'll put the rubber back in. But it is interesting, actually. With that, it's very difficult to see, said me, panning up on this thing. Yeah, no, it's difficult to see if the door is actually hanging wrong. There's all little indicators that say I may not have it perfectly right. Yeah, anyway, so the next thing to do is just there, get my thing, there you go. That's where there's a pillar there. So therefore this there, which it does, pretty much so, that rubber perfectly lines up where the pillar should be. That's the keyway for the pillar there. So that's perfect, that's pretty much perfect actually. So I'm quite pleased with that. So yeah, next thing in, pillar. Yeah, cut there, as they say. Hi, welcome to a bonus day. Today is Bank Holiday Monday, the last weekend of August. So, time to get on with this thing. So, anyway, yesterday I managed to get this door back in. As you might be aware, I was trying to work from the ceiling down to the floor. Given the fact I'm now tightly squeezed in this door, I think that may not have been a good idea because I've still got stuff to do in here. But hey ho, maybe I should do some weight perhaps. But anyway, right, yesterday I also put this pillar in, and I was fussing over this last night whilst driving home thinking something's not right. You may recall the piece of wood that sits just above my head. When I took this bus apart several years back, it basically just fell out on the floor and you couldn't copy it. So I managed to get a fairly decent copy from a friend of mine who's restoring an RTL, and it was a good copy, but the problem with RTs is they're all pretty much hand built and the tolerances vary from one bus to another. So although my brother and I copied it as best we could, it still needs some adjustment. So I'm learning which bits of adjustment need to be made. So last night I was driving home thinking about this pillar. Funny things you think about whilst driving on the motorway, isn't it? And I'm going to take it back out again today. And that's the second time that I've taken it out in the space of 24 hours. Because yesterday, when I put this wood pillar in, I then discovered I couldn't get this piece of metal back on the outside with the door in place, and unfortunately you can't put the door in with a pillar here, so it's counterintuitive with an RT, unfortunately, that when you put this pillar in, you've got to make it up completely so it's ready to go in the bus, which is very unusual for an RT because most things you start with the wood first and then you put the metal on the outside as the last process, so it's unusual to do it the other way around. So anyway, so that's got to come back out today. I've got loads of stuff to be doing in the cab, including this floor, and I'm really dreading it, to be honest with you, because I've got to contort myself around this door now to get this floor done. So it's not a particularly pleasant task, but there's loads of things to be getting on with. So, yeah, let's see how we get on today on Bank Holiday Monday, an extra day.
We had a couple of buses go out this weekend. This one is Peter Figg's 1804. He went to Brands Hatch for the day on Monday. And on Sunday, Mark Davis's RM158. He took that to North Weald for an event that took place at the Epinonga Railway, just up the road from us. So anyway, here's 1804 disappearing off to Brands Hatch. Right, so having got that pillar in the right place, I put this little brown bit of wood there at the bottom of the frame, which had to come out later on. Anyway, so here is the window ready to go back in. Those wires really cheesed me off. They're the wires for the indicators, as you might have gathered, because they come through that little hole there. I made one excessively long, but I'm not going to trim it down until I put the indicators back in. So, being a bit pedantic there, I suppose. Right, so this frame lined up reasonably okay, but then it discovered that I had to do some alterations to the bit of wood that my brother made for me. Sorry about that, Daryl. Had to have get the old router out and remove a bit of wood from there. Unfortunately, it also didn't fit around that front pillar. Now, that front pillar is not one that we made. It's really quite complicated. You can see there, look, it just doesn't want to go. And luckily at the time, I had Roy Gould in the shed, who's very knowledgeable on RTs. And he came over and looked at it and he said, well, that's definitely wrong. That pillar, which, you know, it looked like the old one that came off, and I've got another one, I've got an identical one as well. It's slightly wider at the sort of near side, offside rather, of the bus. So I'm going to have to get the router out again and start to remove bits of it. But it wasn't really what I expected. I was hoping that was just going to drop in, having done all that work on it. So anyway, there it is, me trying to get this window in, and hopefully using the power. I'll tell you what, actually, you can see that there. If you see that bottom bit, right, it overlaps quite considerably. That bit of wood's just dropped down again. I was going to keep doing that. And you can just about see where my hand is. That black wood should not be visible. It's lined up on the top, but it's not like that. And the other thing is, where my hand is hiding it up conveniently, is the bracket for the lower window. And when I looked at it, it's actually definitely well out of a line. I did measure it as well. I measured the bracket on the other side, which has not moved, and then measured the bracket on that. And actually the height's correct. It's just that the window, for some reason, is being pushed out towards the off side of the bus. So I need to fix this. This bit of wood, by the way, got on my nerves in the end, and I decided to get rid of it for the time being. It's only held in there just as a guide for me. So yeah, a bit of a disappointment really, but hopefully I can cut to a picture of it actually temporarily sitting in the frame.
Right, a quick shout out for another preservationist, Tim Hines, who's restoring RT2629. 2629 used to be up here in this barn. It was owned by another restorationist. He sold it on to Tim, who moved it to Wales, and he's doing a top-down strip-out rebuild. He's doing a really great job. He's stripped the whole thing out. He spent a lot of money on the engine. He's rebuilt the engine, and he's watching these videos. Surprise, surprise. I don't know why you watch these videos, Tim. I can't think a guy like you would need to learn anything from me. But anyway, he has. He told me the other day on the phone, he said he's learned quite a few bits from the experience I've been having with this. This really is just learn as you go. I've just learned. I've never done coach making. I've never done mechanics, but it's just a learning process. It's a great thing to have an RT and to have the opportunity to do that. But anyway, well done, Tim, for all the hard work you're doing on your RT. I'm looking forward to seeing 2629 again. Hopefully one day 3461 and 2629 can reunite as they were for several years in this barn.
Okay, here is a nice little segue. This is the former owner of RT2629 with his partner, Lisa. And they popped up to put the transfers on one of my Routmasters. This is RM1069, which also has been reunited in the barn with 3461. These were the first two buses I bought. 3461 was the first one, and then along came 1069. And she is an original Routemaster, not been messed around with during the refurb process. So yeah, she's completely original with tungsten light bulbs and the tartan moquette and everything in there. So it's a nice bus really, that one. Anyway, so the plan is I want to get that back out and do some rallies with it. So Roy and Lisa have popped in to put some transfers on it. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully it's been an enjoyable 3 days up at the barn. Yeah, so thanks very much. And as the YouTube thing says, here's some more that might